E, our Director of Examinations. And number 2, Dr. Charles Chafin, EDD. He's our Manager of the Registered Program. So with no further ado, I will turn this program over to Steve Barkley. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you, Michelle, and welcome everyone to the webinar. I look forward to hopefully seeing many of you at the upcoming Program Directors Conference. Okay, the 2009 Job Analysis Study. Job analyses are conducted approximately every 3 to 5 years, depending on how quickly things are changing within a profession. The last job analysis for the CFP certification exam was conducted in 2004, so as you can see, we were due. The job analysis establishes the framework for the exam blueprint and the validity of the exam. It is also a requirement for accreditation. There we go. Thanks. The CFP certification program is accredited by the National Commission of Certifying Agencies, or NCCA. And standards 10 and 11, as noted here, require that the job analysis clearly exists as the basis for the certification test, and that the test specifications be linked to the job analysis to be valid. In addition to the specific requirements for accreditation, job analyses are also guided by industry best practice standards for examination development. Part of those best practices include obtaining broad-based input from subject matter experts regarding key issues and desired outcomes, and to engage subject matter experts throughout the process. As you can see, CFP Board had a number of task forces and councils collaborating on the job analysis. I'd like to give you a brief overview of the various groups that were involved. The exam task force was assembled in advance of the job analysis, and it was assembled to conduct a comprehensive external review of the CFP examination program. This was a 10-member group, included professionals from other high-stakes testing and testing programs, as well as the certification industry, including medicine, nursing, law, architecture, and finance. The group also included a representative from an accrediting organization, national accrediting. Our Council on Examinations is the oversight body for the CFP certification exam. They were involved throughout this process. CFP Board also engaged an Emerging Trends in Financial Planning Task Force. Sorry about that. We also engaged an Emerging Trends in Financial Planning Task Force. This was a group of 14 members that were identified as big thinkers in the financial planning community. They were recommended through our Council on Examinations, our Board of Directors, as well as our CEO. From that group, we selected a representative sample from across the country, and this group was used to make sure that we were addressing any new or emerging areas before we addressed the study. This group included individual phone calls, interviews, as well as group conference calls. The Job Analysis Task Force was the group that was principally responsible for conducting the study. This also consisted of 14 members, representative sample of CFP professionals from around the country who served as the subject matter expert role. We had 2 members of the Council on Examinations participated across all these areas. We also had the chair of the Council on Examinations participating in both the Emerging Trends group as well as full participation in the Job Analysis Task Force. Primary outcomes. The primary focus of the job analysis study was determined to better define the profession, as in to identify the important job tasks that are performed by CFP professionals. Secondly, with the current exam blueprint focused on 89 topics, we wanted to revisit the topics and identify principal topics in which the CFP professional must be knowledgeable. And lastly, the consensus included that we would like for the exam to require more higher order cognitive level thinking on the CFP exam. This is how CFP Board currently describes the CFP certification exam. It is clear that one of the desired outcomes of the 2004 job analysis study was that questions, as indicated in bold, that the questions will pertain to all levels in Bloom's taxonomy with an emphasis on the higher cognitive levels. This is the modified Bloom's taxonomy that CFP Board uses to categorize examination questions. As you can see, there are 4 levels. Exam writers, reviewers, as well as our counsel and exam are trained in the Bloom's taxonomy and assign a 1 to 4 for each exam question. As part of the job analysis study, we reviewed the distribution of questions on a recent exam to determine exactly what percentage of Bloom's taxonomy were represented on an exam. We found that approximately 80% of exam questions were falling at the level 1 and level 2 areas. About 15 to 20% at level 3, and a very, very small percent at the highest level 4. This includes approximately 1/3 of the questions being at Bloom's level 1, the lowest level possible, which is basically rote memorization or recall or factual recall. So while the intent was to strive to develop an exam of higher order thinking, in practice we weren't quite to the level that we had anticipated. I'd like to provide you with an overview, briefly comparing and contrasting the 2009 job analysis with the preceding analysis that was done in 2004. The current exam, as you know, is based on the 2004 analysis, and it's the exam that you're most familiar. The 2004 study was very topic-focused. It resulted in framing the exam around 7 subject matter areas, which you're familiar: the general principles, insurance, employee benefits, investments, income tax, retirement, and estates planning. Within those subject matter areas, there were 89 major topic areas identified, and within those 89 areas, there were a large number of subtopics and topics under subtopics, approximately nearly 700 subtopics. And I just, at this point, just wanted to note that the 2004 job analysis, the data collected in that study was based at the 89 major topic levels only. Their data was not collected at the subtopic level. The approach for the 2009 job analysis study was very job task focused. It defines the practice requirements for the CFP professional, and collectively those job tasks basically help us define a profession. The framework is around 8 job task domains, and they model very closely the financial planning process. Later in the presentation, we will provide you with the details about the domains and the tasks and so forth, but this is just an overview. There are 97 job tasks that fall under the 8 domains, and in terms of topics, there were 78 principal topics that were identified. I believe 76 of which are a subset of the original 89, and there were 2 additional new topics identified for a total of 78. The Job Analysis Task Force, that group of 14 professionals from around the country, had the principal responsibility for oversight of the study, for developing the list of job tasks, for helping assemble the survey, working very closely with our psychometrician, Dr. Reed Castle, who is president of Global Psychometric Services, a psychometrician who has been engaged in conducting job analysis, approximately 100 of them for other testing programs, a very experienced person. This task force was also responsible for establishing decision rules and cut points, structure for the blueprint, and the actual assigning of weights, again, in conjunction with results, data, and our psychometrician. All CFP professionals in our database were given the opportunity to respond to one of two surveys. One was focused on job tasks, which was the principal focus of the study. The other 50% were assigned to the topic surveys. More than 3,500 professionals completed each of the surveys. More than 8,000 individuals total participated. We were very pleased with our response. So right now we'd like to present the results of the survey. This is on the job tasks, which again serves as the basis for the new exam blueprint. For a job task to make it to the blueprint, it had to meet a set of criteria, including, first of all, it had to make a performance frequency criteria that 80% of the professionals had to indicate that they actually performed the task. So the task is something that is broadly practiced. Secondly, it had to be rated highly in terms of importance. Specifically, it had to have a rating of 3.8 or higher on our 5-point scale, making this 3.8 approaching the very important measure on the scale. So broadly practiced, rated as very important. These two criteria also had to hold across work setting and business model, geographic region, in other words, regardless of where you're practicing as a professional, and the number of hours that you spend in the financial planning, conducting financial planning services. I'd like to give you, this is the new blueprint. And this blueprint is being targeted for March of 2012, so we have a little bit of time preparing for that. The new exam will represent 8 major domains outlined here, along with the approximate percentage allocation of each of the domains. And I'll give you a moment to take a look at those, and then we will provide you with a little more delineation of what falls under each of these domain areas. As you can see, the domains follow very closely the financial planning process. There's also some emphasis on communications, as well as practicing within professional and regulatory standards. I'd like to note that Domain 8 represents 10% of the exam. That is a major statement regarding the importance of practicing within professional regulatory standards. Okay. Domain 1, establishing and defining the client-planner relationship. These are the areas that fall under Domain 1. And again, approximately 8% of the exam will be drawn from these areas. Since we'll be going through these rather quickly, I'd like to note at this point that we will also make, in addition to making the presentation and slides available, the new domains as well as the updated topic list will be posted on CFP Board website in the next day or two. Domain 2, gathering the information necessary to fulfill the engagement, 9% of the exam. Domain 3. I'd like to note that domains 3 and 4 represent 50% of the exam, or a large percentage of the exam, and domain 3 is devoted to analyzing and evaluating the client's current financial status. This is a larger domain. Give you a moment to take a look at that, and I'll go to the next page. One-fourth of the exam will be drawn from these areas, from these tasks. Okay. Domain 4, actually developing the recommendations, a fourth of the exam. Domain 5, communicating the recommendations, approximately 9% of the exam. Domain 6, actually implementing the recommendations, 9%. Domain 7, monitoring the recommendations, again following the financial planning process, smaller percentage, but still at 5%. And the last domain, last but very important, practicing within professional and regulatory standards. 10% of the exam will be devoted to this domain area. Okay. I'd like to talk a little bit now about the topics. Common question is what happens to the topics? Topics, content area are still important. In the framework of the new exam, however, the exam blueprint will be based on job tasks. So the topics will continue to serve as a curriculum framework, identifying critical areas that CFP professionals need to be knowledgeable. Topic areas should look very familiar. They're quite similar to what we have currently. I think what is probably missing from this list is that employee benefits no longer exist as a separate topic area. However, much of that content does continue to fall under other areas. And these are the topics that fall under general principles. Again, collectively, there are 78 topics falling across these 8 principal topic areas. So general principles, insurance planning, investments, investment planning, income tax planning, again, I'm sure these areas look quite familiar. Retirement planning, estate planning, last two topic areas, interpersonal communication. This is a new area. And professional conduct and fiduciary responsibility is a newly separately identified area. Some of these, I believe, currently fall under general principles. Okay. We realize that this is a lot to digest, and as indicated, we will be making this material available to you in a number of different formats, including the webinar, the slides, and we will be posting the new exam blueprint and the updated topic list on the website in the next couple of days. We will also be presenting at your upcoming PDC conference in August, but at this point, we'd like to field some questions, and give us a few moments here. We will we'll gather some questions that have been submitted, and we'll respond to those. Okay, we have a couple questions come in. We have a question: how do you envision the actual exam questions to change or not? We have started, we've held one item writing session since the new exam blueprint was defined. I think you will see that the exam questions will be changing. There will be part of our assessment of the current item bank is determining to what portion of the current items will still be applicable in the new framework. What we're striving for, again, is to have some higher order questions. So many of the questions that you're familiar with in the past that were focused on specific topics that did not require integration, analysis, or synthesis, you're probably going to see a decline in those and an increase in the type of questions that require the individual to apply the knowledge from multiple topic areas to be able to answer a question. So much of the questions will be in the context of the financial planning process and will require the individual to draw from expertise, from their knowledge from multiple topic areas. Okay. We have a question asking who was actually on the task force. All of our task force members were CFP professionals who volunteered their time. And I was just handed the list. I'll be happy to read the list, and I think we can publish this as well. We have Tae-Sung, CFP from New Jersey. We have Lila Washington from Maryland. We have David Ashby, Chair of the Council on Exams from Southern Arkansas. We have I. Richard Ploss, CFP and attorney from Maine, and registered programs, I'm sorry. We have Ivan Roten, CFP and professor at Appalachian State University. We have Rick Miller, founder of Sensible Financial Services from Massachusetts. We have Neil Solomon, managing director at Wealth Pro in New York. We have Trish Arndt, a registered representative from Commonwealth Financial Network in Wisconsin. We have Bruce Gecko from Allstate in Utah. We have Annette Jaskalainen from HD Vest in Texas. We have Margaret Kimmel. All these folks are CFP. Margaret Kimmel, CFP, financial advisor from Smith Barney in Indiana. We have Charles McDonald, a financial analyst in Washington State. Stephen Willis, a manager at Vista Wealth Management in California. And Charles Terry, senior financial planner at Ronald Blue and Company in North Carolina. So 14 individuals total. There's a question, will there be any guidance given on how the principal topics will be allocated, i.e. income tax used to be about 14% of the exam. I don't envision any guidance on percentage allocations at the topic level. However, the guidance will be provided at the job task level, and I think when you review those job tasks, you will see where taxes are most influential, and you'll get a general sense of how well they will be represented. We have a question, will this require the need to recertify currently approved curriculum or approved programs? We might want to defer that until the second session here. We'll let Dr. Charles address that one. Do you anticipate textbook vendors to publish new editions based upon the examination changes? Right. Textbooks are written to support curriculum. They're not published to address examination. So I do not see textbooks being modified to reflect the new exam. I think the textbooks may be modified to reflect any modifications that are experienced on the education side. We have a question, is the intent or results of these changes expected to lower the overall pass rate? The answer is no. And what I like to point out is that the job analysis, the exam blueprint, and the pass rate are very separate issues. The pass rate is influenced, as you know, the CFP certification exam is a criterion referenced exam. With the new exam blueprint, there will be a new standard setting exercise. Standard setting exercise, there will be many subject matter experts involved in that process. When a new test form is established, the first new test form under the new blueprint is established, we will establish a new cut score, and it will be criterion referenced, and the percentage of examinees who meet that cut score will be based on the number of folks who can meet the criteria. It is not determined in advance. It's independently determined. Okay. Question is, will you release guidelines or sample questions as examples? We do anticipate, it may not be before, until early next year, but we do anticipate releasing some sample questions. As you're aware, the current sample questions that are out there are a little bit dated, and they have not been refreshed for quite a while. So I would like to see CFP Board make some new questions available. Will additional definition of the topics listed in the 8 areas be provided? If I'm reading the question correctly, is that the question is insinuating will there be subtopics within topics? The answer there will be for education providers to determine what subtopics are appropriate to fall within those topics. Do you intend to provide subtopic learning objectives for each of the 78 topics? The answer is no. And again, part of this exercise and the new approach to the job analysis in 2009 is that the focus is now on job tasks. It is not on the topics. It is the application of that knowledge in the topic areas in the performance of the duties of a CFP professional. So the focus is now on the practitioner, the professional, the CFP professional, and what he or she needs to be able to do to perform their duties. That will be the focus of the exam. It looks like at the moment we're caught up on the questions. We'll give you a couple more moments, and if we don't have any additional questions, we will turn the program over to our second half. We're good.
Okay, we are moving to the second portion of the program, which I previously mentioned would be on the financial plan development course requirement. Those of you remember in March, there was announced that this requirement was adopted, and today's presentation will be about implementation and how the proposed courses are going to be reviewed by CFP Board. So I will turn it now over to Dr. Charles Chapin, who is our Manager of Registered Programs. Charles?
Good afternoon. For today, we're going to start by talking about, just very briefly, talking about the rationale for this course, the criteria in and of itself, and then some logistical information relative to the implementation, and finally how we at CFP Board can be a resource throughout each stage of this process. The dialogue leading up to this was very beneficial, and we had a lot of contributors. I think to summarize exactly what the purpose of this course is, this rationale, I think it comes down to 3 words: integration, application, and communication. This course requirement is going to basically encapsulate those 3 words as our primary objective, and you're going to see that as we go through with the criteria. This course is competency-based, and basically the idea behind that is that all of the instruction and experiences consist of skills and knowledge that are related exclusively to an individual's performance in a given profession. So meaning that whether it would be philosophy or abstract skills or facts or whatnot, it really doesn't work in a competency-based course such as this. Those are all very, very important, but all of them are encapsulated through experiences that prepare the individual for a given profession. And the benefits of competency-based courses, the learner achievement is quantified against an accepted performance standard. So what is the performance standard in this case for personal financial planning or any component of that? Learner assessment provides a detailed summary of that individual's effectiveness relative to the profession. So in this case, now we're eliminating some of the guesswork of our graduates that are leaving our registered programs. How effectively can they develop a financial plan? How effectively can they achieve the results that we're expecting relative to these 7 learning objectives? It doesn't eliminate all of the guesswork, but it certainly helps as we develop these contextual experiences. And finally, learner assessment in this form informs subsequent instruction. So at the end of this competency-based capstone course, our registered programs are going to have a better understanding of how the curriculum is being implemented and whether or not change is necessary or if things are going well or whatnot. But it's a very, very good snapshot of the effectiveness of instruction up to that point. The criteria for this course consists entirely of 7 learning objectives. And I want to preface the presentation of that by saying that it was very important to the task force and to CFP Board to make sure that we establish the what, the criteria, and that we let our registered programs and our faculty decide how they want to implement that. It is a very important collaboration that we have with our registered programs, and it is not in our best interest to dictate how instruction is to be implemented. It is only in our best interest to come up with minimum competency levels relative to the profession. So without further ado, learning objective 1, the student will be able to demonstrate a comprehensive understanding of the content found within the financial planning curriculum and effectively apply and integrate this information in the formulation of a financial plan. So this, at its very basic element, is synthesis of curricular content from all courses leading up to this course. Obviously, within that, we'll get into the experiential element in just a second, but this is basically tied exactly to application and integration. Learning objective 2, the student will be able to effectively communicate the financial plan, both orally and in writing, including information based upon research, peer, colleague, or simulated client interaction, and or results emanating from synthesis of material. So to kind of summarize this is basically talking about communication in both written and oral forms, mainly consisting of all actions relative to the role of the personal financial planner. Learning objective 3, the student will be able to collect all necessary and relevant qualitative and quantitative information required to develop a financial plan. So this is gathering the appropriate data in order to inform subsequent action. Learning objective 4, the student will be able to analyze personal financial situations, evaluating clients' objectives, needs, and values to develop an appropriate strategy within the financial plan. So being able to take this information and contextual information and begin to analyze it in order to develop an appropriate plan of action. Learning objective 5, the student will be able to demonstrate logic and reasoning to identify the strengths and weaknesses of various approaches to a specific problem. So being able to take the data that's been collected, the contextual information that's been provided, and to be able to evaluate appropriate courses of action based upon that data. Learning objective 6, the student will be able to evaluate the impact of economic, political, and regulatory issues with regard to the financial plan. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. And finally, learning objective 7, the student will be able to apply the CFP Board financial planning practice standards to the financial planning process. So you could say that in learning objectives 6 and 7, both of those are application of these particular elements within the confines of developing a financial plan, so within all elements of that process. All of this information that I'm presenting, along with this criteria, is in the primary document for this course. The learning experience component in developing curriculum and instruction relative to the financial plan development course. Registered programs have the flexibility to utilize a variety of educational experiences in order to meet the specified learning objectives required by CFP Board. These experiences within this capstone course may include, but are not limited to, case studies, practicum experiences, presentation formats, software, and internships. The rationale for devising criteria focused exclusively upon learning objectives is to give registered programs the opportunity to use their own creativity in devising learning objectives that they believe are best suited for their students while still meeting the CFP Board required learner achievement benchmarks relative to the financial plan development course. So this, what I alluded to earlier, in our relationship, CFP Board's relationship with registered programs, it is in, we believe, everyone's best interest for us to establish the criteria and then basically get out of the way of the registered programs to decide the best way to meet that criteria. We feel strongly that the task force developed very strong learning objectives that we feel encapsulate this criteria-based course, but it's up to our registered programs to decide the best way they see fit to meet those learning objectives. And we want to support that creativity and honor that in our relationship. Assessment. CFP Board will require that registered programs utilize rubrics as a primary avenue of learner assessment in the financial plan development course. However, CFP Board encourages faculty and registered programs to develop their own assessment rubrics that represent what they believe to be the primary components of a particular course or unit of study. These rubrics should accurately assess all aspects of the content and experiences associated with the financial plan development course learning objectives. CFP Board will require submission of all financial plan development course syllabi and assessment rubrics during the annual registered program registration renewal. The purpose of this ongoing evaluation is to ensure that all of the students enrolled in the various registered programs across the United States demonstrate the same minimum competency level relative to the financial plan development course learning objectives. Without question, assessment is a major part of our registered programs' lives right now with regard to accreditation. Our role in requiring a particular assessment vehicle, with, in particular our rubric, is to make sure that we have a minimum competency. I think we're all working towards the same objective to ensure that a student from the state of Washington has the same minimum competency as a student from the state of Florida. That's part of the value of being a CFP Board registered program, so that future employers and clients know exactly what it is that they're getting from a minimum competency level. With that being said, we still feel that it's important that you all decide how you want to weight those rubrics as we go along. So we're requiring a rubric, and we would like that to be submitted as part of the process, but we're not necessarily telling you exactly what rubric to use. Just as an example for everyone, this is a rubric from Chris Watson. It's just as an outline, and you can see basically that there are categories of this, and then basically deciding how each component is going to be weighted. There are, and you can take a look at the detail that's here, but there's also opportunities to provide some qualitative information as well, so that you could certainly add some text to this that would talk about elements of, student tracking, perhaps, that the student has performed better in one competency area or another. So there's a lot of opportunity, I think, to decide how you want to meet that assessment strategy. But here, there's definitely, using a rubric, there's a systematic approach to student assessment, and I know that that's something that everyone is dealing with in their own institution right now, and many of you use rubrics already. Going back to the language associated with the criteria, with regard to curriculum change, it now becomes down to who and when. The grandfather clause provides protection from changes in requirements for students who maintain continuous enrollment in a program of study, curriculum, or major. The financial plan development course is required for all students enrolled in a certificate, baccalaureate, or graduate program effective January 1st, 2012. Therefore, students whose initial date of matriculation occurs on or after January 1st, 2012 will be required to take this course. Conversely, a student whose initial date is before that time but is still enrolled in the registered program will not be required to take the financial plan development course. Registered programs will decide the appropriate program of study for students who have a significant break in enrollment during any point in this period. It is important to note that given the upcoming changes to the CFP exam, registered programs should encourage all students to consider enrollment in the financial plan development course once it is adopted by the institution. So therefore, obviously, when any kind of curriculum change is going to take place, the students that are already enrolled in the program, changing those requirements for graduation midstream is just not an option. Different institutions have different standards for students that have breaks in enrollment. Some institutions, after a semester, say that if a student comes back in after a break that they would adopt a new curriculum. Some say that they would go back to their initial. That is up to the registered programs to decide how to handle those situations. The registered programs will monitor that. That's not really our place to be monitoring that. But the important element here with the grandfather clause is that students who enter the program after January 1st are required to take this course. Before that, they are not. They would basically go into what would be the old curriculum, per se. Additional language is associated with this criteria. CFP Board expects registered programs to monitor who's taken the financial plan development course, as well as determine the course of action for students who breaks in enrollment. And I alluded to that earlier. CFP Board is not interested in advising students. That is something that we respect that goes on in the registered programs in the institutions, and we understand that is something that goes on a daily basis in your institutions, and it's not our place to step into that. We understand that all of those actions are going on at the institution level, and we know that will be addressed. A student's status with regard to the grandfather clause will not be affected by exam performance. So if a student takes the November 2011 exam and they do not pass that exam, if they decide they want to retake the exam in March of 2012, they won't be required to take the financial plan development course prior to it. They would be grandfathered in under the old requirement. Submission for approval of the financial plan development course will be relative to the syllabus, rubric, and curriculum vitae for the instructor of the course. Registered programs can submit their financial plan development course for approval at any time between July 15th of this year, this week as a matter of fact, and December 1st of 2011. I'm going to talk about specifics of that in just a few moments. This is the language that's going along with the criteria and rationale. Challengers must complete the financial plan development course in order to register for the March 2012 exam. Registered programs are encouraged to utilize the terms financial plan development course, capstone course in financial planning, or case studies course within their institution. And we're encouraging that language. That's not a requirement. Registered programs are encouraged to require students to take this course at the end of the sequence of curricular courses within their program of study. However, faculty at registered programs will monitor and advise when students should take this course in their program of study. So once again, we're not interested in advising your students if you're a program director. We would certainly hope that this course would happen at the end of their program, of the student's program of study. However, there are certain instances that happen, and it's not our place to get involved with that if there's a scheduling issue or whatnot. But certainly this course is a capstone course, so it needs to be taken at the end of the program of study. However, once again, we're not going to police when and who's taking this course. CFP Board recognizes the oversight and quality control that exists at all of the institutions that house registered programs. Therefore, CFP Board will only approve financial plan development course applications that have been previously approved by the institutions that house those registered programs. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about how we're going to implement this specifically, but this is language, once again, it's going right along with the rationale. So let's talk about that then. So the implementation and approval of this course, basically approval is happening on-site within the institution, as well as here at CFP Board. With regard to CFP Board, it can occur anytime between now and December 1st of 2011. So if you already are, if you are a faculty member or a program director and you've been offering this capstone course or a case course that has been going on for 20 years and you want to get that approved or you want to submit that, you're able to do it. And we'll talk a little bit more about where you could go to do that. It's separate from the renewal application, and I'll talk specifically about that in a second, but there's no additional fee, and all we're looking for is the three basic elements to this to the application. It's one page that identifies the program director and contact information, the course syllabus, the CV of the instructor, and then whatever assessment rubric that that you all decide to use. The application form is one page. It's available on the CFP Board website at cfp.net/registered programs. That is a new site, if you will, or a new component of the website at CFP Board. And because the form is available now, because it's a little bit different than the renewal. The renewal, you've had a date that you've been required, and we've sent out a notification reminding you of that. But we're leaving this pretty open with regard to when you want to get this course approved. So we're just going to make that form available at any time for you to decide when you would like to submit it. Evaluation of the course syllabus will depend solely upon the content, instruction, learning experiences, and assessment strategies relative to the learning objective established as the criteria for this course. If a capstone course has already been part of the curriculum, then I'm happy to evaluate the course and assess if there are any gaps there. So if you've been offering a capstone course for a long time and you're really not sure how close you are and you'd like to submit it, I'm happy to look that over informally before you officially submit it to see what kind of gaps may exist. And we're not interested in folks having to necessarily reinvent the wheel. If things are working well and you're meeting those 7 learning objectives and you've got some assessment rubric already in place, then we can move forward with that. The criteria for the instructor is basically the same criteria that we've been using for the annual renewals, which was established in 2008. So nothing there is going to change. We are asking, though, that we get, even though if you have a faculty member that has been teaching another course and it may be, and you suspect it may be on file already with us, we really want to have that updated CV of the instructor with this separate application. And finally, the assessment rubric, which I've already talked about, seeing how you're going to weight different components of the development of the financial plan. And the whole notion of this idea with an assessment rubric is to make sure that the learning objectives that we've developed are working. I mean, I think that's the whole point of this, that if we decided to let individuals go with some sort of deficit-style assessment, then you're not going to have an accurate understanding of if the learning objectives are necessarily following through, and we're certainly not. And I think we always go back to that notion of minimum competency and making sure that all of our students display a minimum competency regardless of the type of program or type of delivery format or location. So once again, the course must be approved at the home institution before submission to CFP Board. But we recognize that if you're starting from scratch and you have not offered any kind of capstone course up to this point, it is reasonable to expect that if you apply to get this course implemented in your home institution, say this fall, it would be reasonable to expect that by the end of the spring semester, you should have approval of that, and then you can decide to move forward with approval from CFP Board in the summer or even as late as fall of next year. The second point, the course must be submitted to us by December 1st, 2011, or the program will be deregistered. And we will, I'll talk about CFP Board as a resource We are more than willing to hold your hand throughout this process if necessary to help. We don't want to take a heavy-handed approach with this, and we're willing to help. However, that's the cutoff date, and that is basically our new curriculum, and we must ensure that our registered programs are all in sync in meeting those curricular requirements. So CFP Board is a resource. This is a partnership, and throughout our dialogue with the task force, that what-how relationship has been critical. So we talked about the rationale, which is why we're doing this course, and I think everyone understands that. The what is the criteria. That is the 7 learning objectives, and anything beyond that is logistical information to make sure that what, if you will, is being met. The how element is all for you to all decide how you want to meet those objectives. I'll talk about the Program Directors Conference, which could be entitled the How Conference, because that's basically what it is best practices. But that distinction is very important. So in all of these questions that have come about with implementation of this course, advising students or tracking which students should be taking that, we have left that up to our registered programs. You know best, and we would hope that as soon as you're able to get this course approved that you would offer it to them, and many program directors have said that because they think it's important. But it is only our place to make sure that we're establishing a minimum competency level. And the how, as you close the door in your classrooms and do what you want anyway, you're going to decide the best way of meeting that criteria. The who and when relationship is elements of the grandfather clause and how you see the students coming into the program and when they're matriculating it, when they should take it. After January 1st of 2012, the who is everybody. But the when, as we hope it's at the end of the sequence of instruction, but that's elements of advising, and again, we're going to defer to our registered programs regarding that. Assessment of the capstone course to evaluate any learning objectives relative to that. So if there are any gaps in there that are happening in there, that's once again part of our partnership. So look at that and see how we can make sure that we're meeting that criteria. And a resource relative to resources. And what I mean by that is this CFP.net/registered programs is going to be a really great platform to look at, for example, cases. So we're developing a financial plan development course case review committee, which will consist of faculty members from a variety of different programs to evaluate cases that folks submit that they think would be good resources. And we're going to be a clearinghouse for those. And that committee will make sure that whatever goes onto that secured site will be quality. And that sharing of resources, I think what we envisioned for that website, I think could be relatively extraordinary in having a great dialogue and sharing of ideas in meeting not only the criteria for this course, but for all of our curriculum. The Program Directors Conference. This is how, and all of this is a best practices session. So ideas for integration and application of curricular content, and we've been really fortunate this year because we've had a large number of individuals submit. And the best part of that dialogue, which is what this conference is going to be, is that everyone's represented here. So we have individuals that are faculty or program directors in certificate programs, bachelor's programs, master's and doctoral programs, online, classroom-based, self-study. So all of those individuals are represented. And so I think what you'll find next month is that individuals have a variety of different ways that they like to meet these objectives. And I think that speaks to the strength of our discipline and the creativity that our faculty are bringing to the table. So, as a little public service announcement for the conference, these are some of the topics: capstone courses for a variety of different formats, a variety of different avenues for assessment, distance communication options. So that's related to technology. We're going to talk about some annual renewal questions that have come up, as well as elaborate on this course, instructional materials and textbooks, ways to get your advisory groups involved, case study resources, ways of taking theory to practice, meaning that you have a content area and you're trying to find different ways to incorporate that into analysis and application and synthesis. We're going to have some sessions on that. Marketing and recruitment, we've heard you. We know that's a critical issue right now, and so we're going to have some avenues for that. And I would say marketing in a variety of different avenues there. Development of multi-degree bachelor's and graduate programs, which is, I know, something that many of you are aspiring to do. And this year we're going to have a graduate research poster session, so the opportunity to for graduate students to demonstrate their research at a poster session, which is going to take place during our reception. And I think that's pretty powerful, because you have researchers that are going to be able to talk to practitioners, which is important for practitioners to kind of stretch their lens a little bit, and for researchers to understand practitioners a little bit better, and faculty to, I think, engage both of those. So I think that could be a very powerful conversation. These are the institutions that are going to be represented. We have 18 different institutions represented, and again, from a variety of different delivery formats and backgrounds. And then finally, this site just launched, actually, about an hour ago, cfp.net/register programs. All of the criteria and accompanying language is on that site. We will be adding cases, sample assessment rubrics as they come in, but I think it's going to be a great meeting place for our program directors and faculty and to share resources and talk about best practices. I think it's really important that we thank the Financial Plan Development Course Task Force. If you take a look at these individuals, it was a very enlightening and powerful dialogue that we had from individuals that, once again, I think were very diverse in not only their experiences, but the programs that they represent. And that diversity is really important in this task force, and I think it's really important to CFP Board. So I think I think it's safe for me to speak for CFP Board in saying that we are very grateful to these individuals in contributing to this dialogue and coming up with what we think is a very powerful and useful course that will benefit the profession greatly. And I'm happy to take questions. I'll take a moment, and then we'll get to some of the questions. Okay, I'd like to go through some of these questions. With regard to challengers, I didn't mean to go too fast with that there, but challengers starting in March of 2012. for the March 2012 exam will be required to take this course. That will be the first time that challengers will be required to take it. The contact hours, with regard to the next question, the contact hours will be, for this course, will be weighted exactly the same as the contact hours for the other course, so equivalent to 3 credits, average of 15 weeks, which is 45 contact hours, in addition to the 225, which is a total of 270 contact hours there. So that this course is weighted no different in that regard than any of the other ones. So the question about do you need to take this course before you sit for the exam? Well, it kind of goes back to depending on where you're at. I would highlight that anyone matriculating into a registered program after January 1st of 2012 would be required to take this course. Anyone before that would fall under the grandfather clause unless there are breaks in enrollment. So in other words, if you matriculated before that, but the student deregistered for a period of time, then it's up to the registered program's faculty to decide whether that individual would fall under the old curriculum where they initially matriculated, or would they be required to go into the new curriculum. And different institutions have different policies for that, so that's up to the registered program. The model curriculum, the next question, will the CFP Board be working with the model curriculum committee for this? And that is something that we are discussing right now and evaluating our current policy with regard to the model curriculum. We have had some discussions about that very recently, as a matter of fact, and it's something that we are currently evaluating. So the notion of exam performance here, then the idea there is that if a student takes an exam, say in 2011, and they do not pass that exam, they take the exam in March of 2012, they're not required to go back and take this financial plan development course. Under these rules, the student would be grandfathered in under the old curriculum. So it's not a case of kind of double jeopardy, perhaps, for the student. And I think that, and I would say practically also, that there's also that element of separating exams from education. And I think that when we start getting into that issue there too, I think if you did that, it opens up a huge can of worms that's really not appropriate there. Thank you for posting criteria and additional data on the website immediately. You're more than welcome. We did work to get that up today at 12:45, and because I know that I do speak quickly and there's a lot to digest, and so I think it'll be a resource to you as you refer. The question is a good question. If our well, they're all good questions, but if our program already has a capstone course, are you suggesting we rework that course or add a 7th class? Absolutely, we're not suggesting that you rework that course at all. What I would suggest would be to look at these learning objectives and give me a call, and let's go through what you have right now and see how close you are to meeting that. There's no need to reinvent the wheel necessarily. And I'm happy to work with you on establishing the criteria. So that is correct. So the question here talking about newly matriculated students after January 1st. I want to make sure we're very clear about that. That students that would enroll after that date are the ones that would be required to take this course. It may be that if it's a bachelor's program, then this is a capstone course that would be at the end of a sequence of instruction, the end of a program of study. So it may be a while, if you're in a bachelor's program, before you would be required to offer that course. We still want the course to be approved and in the books here by December 1st of 2011. But as far as being required, that grandfather clause, especially if there's 3 or 4 years, the 4-year program, then it's going to be a little bit different. Some programs, if it's a bachelor's program, some programs, they don't officially enter the program till the junior year. So it really kind of depends on your institution there regarding that element. But yes, it's January 1st, 2012 or later. We are hoping that you encourage your students to take it sooner. I think that the dialogue that I've had with most folks is that this is a worthwhile venture, and if that's the case and you're able to get it up and running sooner, then let's go for it. Let's get it up and encourage our students to take it. I think that they'll be better off in the profession because of that. We are going to be talking about the question about contact hours. We are going to be talking about that in the coming weeks and really kind of fleshing that out of the criteria. I think there's a few things in there that we could probably do to make that a little bit cleaner. I've worked real hard to make sure that our feedback in that area has been accurate and during these annual renewals. But I would agree that I think there's some things we could do to make that a little bit cleaner. Those of you that are getting these evaluations through accrediting bodies, you're going through all that already, and we understand that and respect that notion. But I do think that there's some things that we can do to make sure that we're real clear about how we're weighting that course. If you're a new program and you're in the process of registering, well, you essentially would be grandfathered in yourself as a registered program. If you wanted to do, the question is talking about if you're a new program and you're wanting to get registered, I would take it very soon, then you could certainly go for an initial application this year, and we could work together on getting the capstone approved for next year. That would be very easy. So we're not going to hold that up and make that requirement any different. You would still obviously need to get the capstone, the financial plan development course approved by December 1st of 2011. And that is correct. Regarding the contact hours, and we're going to continue to flesh that out in the coming weeks and months regarding the contact hour issue to make sure that we're real clear about that. But I think what I want to emphasize here is that we need to make sure that this course is a full unit of study within the curriculum, and it's not going to be a 3-week course or something like that that's going to meet once or something like that for 2 hours. We need to make sure that this is an equally weighted course, and we will have language that will establish that. Somebody asked, how much longer do you envision the challenge status to exist? I'm not quite sure how long that will exist. It's hard for me to guess because I think there's a number of factors related to that. So I'm not quite sure about that to give you an exact answer on that. I want to thank you very much for your questions, and you have my information up there. I'm happy to speak with you if you have individual questions relative to your program or your students, and I'm certainly happy to be a resource as we move forward with this. I think that I think it's an exciting time for the profession. I think we're going to be preparing our graduates to enter the profession and induction process a lot quicker, and we're very happy to work with you in this partnership. So thank you very much.